Hi teachers, I wanted to show you the math warm-ups from the teacher view and from the student view. So what I'm going to do right now is start the lesson with Pear Deck. This is not something students would have to have installed on their computer. They would simply type in the code. So we'll just copy and paste that, and they get a big kick out of that. And they will just enter this code. And that's all that they have to do. And then the lesson would start when you're ready for it. So one student in the class, that's me. Then I would move forward just like I would in a regular slideshow. So students are going to find the total number of dots. Now, I want this to be quick. I don't want them to have time to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Their screen's going to look just like your screen. Okay? Now, ideally though, wrong one, we would only show that to them for just a second. So I would say, okay, find the total number of dots. And then I would go ahead and stop pretty quick or move on to the next slide. Now on the next slide, you can see where that's covered up. And students have to enter in how many dots that they saw. So they might enter in 8, and this just kind of holds students accountable for actually thinking about the problem and doing the work. And then what you can do when you're over here is you can show responses without showing student names. And later on, if you had the upgraded version, you could see privately who answered what. Now, you can also go back to the original slide. So say once students enter their number, then you could go back to slide 2 and then you could discuss. See guys, we could count 2, 4, 6, 8. And that's how the quick images would go with the students. So here's another one. So you would show it for just a second, then you would cover it up, and then students would enter in that response. So that's how a quick image would work with these math warm-ups. And this is super important for unitizing, because many students really struggle moving on from additive thinking to multiplicative thinking. And this is one of the very best things you can do to move students forward with this. Now, another incredibly valued activity is the count the room. Now, I thought that would be so easy for my students, but it was not. Now, some places have students stand in a circle. We just have a routine that we follow throughout the room where when it's students' turn, they have to say what number would come next. So if you're showing this in your presentation mode, it would look like this for students, and as students say the numbers, then you'll remove those pink images. Now, obviously counting by 5s when you start at 5 is pretty easy. But when you do problems like this, when you start at 3, that adds a whole nother level of difficulty for students. But this is really valuable practice. I also incorporate number talks and number strings into the math warm-ups. This is one that would not be used with Pear Deck because the premise is for this to all be mental math. So I would start really, really easy at the very beginning of the year, but obviously this is going to ramp up quickly. So for example, in this one, students may be finding ways to make 10. Now, as the teacher, when you're going through this slideshow, with each click, one of the pink bars will disappear, so you can add on to that number string. So that would be one slide, and then when you go to the next slide, the same thing would happen where, let's see, they would gradually fade away. So you could see how that would work through a slide presentation. Another example of a math warm-up activity might be a which one doesn't belong, where there's not really a right or a wrong answer. So if you're using Pear Deck, students can move their icon to wherever they think, whatever number they believe doesn't belong. And then as the teacher, you can even show the class, once again privately, how many people have what response, and then The valuable part of this warm-up, though, is in the conversation of why they think that that number doesn't belong. The empty number line is great for spatial reasoning. So this is what students would see. Now there's a missing number on this number line, and they're going to predict what they think that number is. Now if I come back over here to mine, though, what students will do is you will call on individual students to predict what they think that number might be. And if it's right, then of course you can show students that correct number. But if it's the incorrect guess, you would mark where the number they chose belonged on that number line. So for example, this one is 20. Well, no, it's 15. Sorry. So this one is 15, but say the student, no, I'm sorry. This one is 20. Now, if the student guessed maybe 18, you would write an 18 on that number line. Now, as the year progresses, these activities will change. They'll increase in difficulty. They'll begin incorporating word problems, more multiplication, division, fractions, decimals. There's so many things you can do through these warm-ups, but all of them combine together to hit all aspects of number sense.